Hello everyone. Today's poem is 题李凝幽居 by Jia Dao. Jia Dao was a very famous Mid-Tang period poet. He was the first Beijing poet we introduced so far. So if you have been to Beijing or if you have the chance to go to Beijing, you can pay a visit to his temple in the Fangshan district. So that's it's his hometown. And he was born in a very normal and poor family. There's no record about his life before he went to Chang'an city, the capital city. So we only know he was born in a poor family, and because of the poverty, he had to go to the temple, the Buddhist temple, to be as a monk, not for the religious reason, mainly because of the poverty. And year after years later, he continued his religious practice, and by traveling around the country, which was so-called Yunyou, so touring in the clouds. So that's the name for the monks who is traveling around. And along the road, the families, the temples, they will treat him with meals and a place, a bed for sleep. So as far as there is humans or families, he was always treated with free food, free meals. And when he get to Chang'an city, because he was so fond of writing poems, if we talk about Jia Dao and just use one word to describe of his characteristics, that is, he was born for the poems. So everything he do is for poems. He loves writing poems so much, and he made friends with Meng Jiao very quickly. So these two poets, famous two poets, they belong to the same categories of writing styles, which is pay extreme attention to the wordings, the refined wordings. So there's a little bit like the poet we have just introduced, who is Li He. So Li He is pay extremely attentions, energies to the wording as well. But they have a huge difference, because Li He was a so proud person, and he was a royal blood, and also he always want to achieve something by contributing to the countries. But Li He and Meng Jiao is totally different. They was born in a very normal family, a poor family, and through their life stories and through their poems, they don't show too much interest to do the things for the country or to get closer to the emperors. The focus is on the poems, and that's all. So that make a huge difference between their poems, because their mindset is different. So generally speaking, we know Jia Dao was born in Fangshan district, Beijing city, and he became a monk in his hometown, and that's all we know about his early time. And then he went to Chang'an city, the capital city, and from that time, we start to know his poem and all kinds of stories about Jia Dao. He has a lot of funny stories. Some is true and some is could be fake stories. So apparently he's a quite unique person, and he tried to get a position, take the imperial exams when he was in Chang'an, but he failed them all until the last few years of his life. He got a position not because of the imperial exam. I do think because his friends' recommendation or his fame on writing poems, sort of. He got a very junior position in Sichuan province, and he died there. So basically, all the poems and the stories about Jia Dao was happened in the Chang'an city, and of course about this poem as well. So what make Jia Dao so famous is not because of the quality of his or popularity of his poems. It's because he's quite a unique person. Per his another poem about how he wrote poems. 两句三年得，一因双泪流。So 2 sentences cost him 3 years of writing them, and when he read the sentences, teardrops from both of his eyes. So this means the writing this poems is a very, very hard and difficult things for him, and also when he read them or recite them, he could be moved by the poem itself, or maybe he was moved by his hard work or the bitterness of writing poems. That's only one of the stories about Jia Dao. Let's have the poem which also was associated with another Jia Dao story. 题李凝幽居，家岛。闲居少邻并，草径入荒园。鸟宿池边树，僧敲月下门。过桥分野色，移石动云根。暂去还来此，幽期不负言。A very simple and straightforward poems, but he spent a lot of time to refine the particular words or characters. Li Ning is a very good friend of Jia Dao. Youju means a very quiet house. Normally, it refers to a house of a hermit. And most probably from the poems and from the word Youju, I believe his best friend Li Ning was living in the mountain, the South Mountain. So the title 题李凝幽居 means Jia Dao write down these poems on the halls of the Li Ning's home, normally on the door or on the walls. So that's a habit of the Tang people. So they, whenever they write a new poems, they write down the poems on the wall, on the door. I had another video introduced a poem so-called 题都城南庄. So that means the same thing, writing the poems on the door of a house so-called Nanzhuang. And very interestingly, the Nanzhuang actually is in between the capital city and the South Mountain. So basically, go down the south from the Chang'an city, that's the entertainment area or the trekking area for the scholars, for the poets in the Tang Dynasty. 闲居少邻并，草径入荒园. So that describes a house of a hermit life. 闲居, so it's in a leisure, in a quiet place. And so no neighborhood, 少邻并, so there's no neighborhood aside or adjacent. 草径入荒园, the road is with grass and goes into the ruined garden. So the road is with all the grass, so you can see very, very few people is there, or very, very few visitors is coming here. So that's basically the very typical place for the hermit. 鸟宿池边树，僧敲月下门. The birds is sitting on the trees aside the pond, and Seng, the monk, is knocking the doors under the moon. So that's very normal situation, but it's a very quiet and picturesque, but it's quite normal after in the Mid-Tang's time, because all this sort of the situations is described by many poets already. 过桥分野色，移石动云根. So here is a little bit unique. So it's the sentences is reversed. So 野色分过桥. So that means 野色 the views or the scenic views of the wild differs when passed by the bridge. So as we know, go south out of the Chang'an city, it's roughly 20 to 30 kilometers of the farmland, valleys, gardens. It's a very prosperous and beautiful farmland. And beyond that is the huge, big South Mountains. So I do think it's he's talking about he's going beyond the farmland and go into the big mountains, and this views is quite different between the farmland and the big mountains. And in the next sentence, which will double confirm my conclusion, 移石动云根 is also a reverse sentence. So the normal sequence, it should be 云根动移石. 云根 is the root of the clouds. So we know very exactly what kind of clouds he's describing, because the clouds sometimes came as a carpet, like a surface. So there, it's hard to tell where is the root. But sometimes, especially in the summertime, the clouds is like a huge figures, any kind of figures with the up and downs. So you can see the up and downs, and the root, of course, is the lower part of that big, gigantic clouds. Normally, that's only happens in the summertime. 动移石, so the root, the cloud root moves, which actually means the clouds move. So 云根 makes the wordings more different. If he refers to 白云动移石, so that's a bit normal. So that's the energy or the time Jia Dao spent on his poem writings. He focused a lot, he spent a lot of time, energy on making his word different. So the clouds is moving. 移石 is his unique imaginations. The clouds moving and to make the rocks looks like moving as well. So why he has such illusions? Very clearly, if you have been to that place, the South Mountain is such a huge and high mountains. So when you look around far away, the mountain, the top of the mountain is roughly like with the clouds or sometimes above the clouds. So when the clouds moves, it's hard for you to tell if it's a cloud is moving or the rock of the mountain is moving. So that's a very unique imagination and descriptions. That's the best part of this poem, in my own opinion. 暂去还来此，幽期不负言. So for the moment, 暂 for the moment, 去 go away. 还来 还 is come back. So 还 is also a key word here. So we have talked 还 in many poems that 还 is the term to describe go to the ultimate destinations. So it normally two meanings. One is the death, the other is his spiritual pursuit or his lifelong goals. So he used 还 to make this comeback more very important, and also has a sort of the relation to the last sentences. 幽期不负言. 幽期, a date, a promise of the hermit or hermit. So he think the dating or the meeting of the two, he and his best friend Ning, is a sort of going to the hermit life together, a sort of the practice of the hermit. And 不负言, I will keep my promise. I won't break my promise. 不负, that's 不负言. So the last word actually means I will not break my words that I will come back again and went for this dating to go to the hermit life together with you. So from here we can see the last sentences is quite closely related with 幽期, because 还 always has a very strong implication to the lifelong pursuit, the lifelong goals. So 幽期 is of course it's a goal, but it's a sort of the short period of goal, not the lifelong goals. So from here, the 还 and 幽期 was closely related, and from here we can see that Jia Dao wasn't a person with a great ambition, and he don't think too much about contributing to the country or serve the people or serve the emperor. So all his thought is about the hermit life. Go for a hermit life, of course, is a quite decent choice for the classic Chinese elite, for the classic Chinese scholars, as the hermits all expressed their most concerns on the country, on the political situations, on the people. Even he was staying in a very wild place. That's quite obvious when we look from his life stories, from all the poems he has written. And for Jia Dao, it's quite different. He wants to be a hermit life. That's okay. And he didn't care too much about the political things. He didn't care too much about the country. He blames the rich, but it's quite shallow, simple blames the rich. Because if he really cares about the country or the peoples, that's normally you will pay a very close attention and spend a lot of the time or energy on the political things. But Jia Dao never did sort of things. So he blamed the rich and he expressed he want to be a hermit life. That's far from the typical hermit in the classic Chinese literature, and that was considered to be one of the shortcomings of Jia Dao's poems, lack the real substance or lack the spirit in his poems. Anyhow, he's still quite famous because he's a person with stories. On the way back to the Chang'an city from his friend's home, Ning Youju, he crashed on the horse of Han Yu. So Han Yu was the most famous poet and articles of the time, and he in the history finally he was proved he was one of the leader in the Chinese literacy. Han Yu was holding a position in the central government that time, and hitting on the officer's horse was a minor crime. When Han Yu was aware about this young guy was thinking all the things about the poem and pay no attention on his troops. Han Yu stopped his horse for quite a while there on the street, and then started to talk discussion with Jia Dao about the poem he was writing about. So the key question is Jia Dao has want to figure out one of the sentences, 僧敲月下门, and he has another choice of the word, 僧推月下门. 敲 is knocking, 推 is push. So he tried to figure out which character is best for this sentence, 僧敲月下门 or 僧推月下门. So the two is standing on the street on the horse for quite a while, talk about these specific issues, and finally Han Yu suggests to use 敲, the knocking, because the gesture is quite similar. Under the moons in a wild place, a monk is pushing the doors. When knocking was used, not only make the place more vividly with sound, but more importantly, to use the sound to contrast the silence, which make the place more silent. So that's a very typical writing techniques, 以动衬静. And finally, this story lasts till today, and there's a very specific word from this story till today, 推敲. So whenever a middle school student you ask what is 推敲, normally they will tell you this story. Of course, they will tell you what 推敲 is. Refine wording, think twice, think 3 times, 4 times to make the thing or make the sentences more sophisticated. Okay, that's for Jia Dao, and that's for today. Bye bye.